Welcome to the Holistic Growth Podcast, navigating business and natural health and functional medicine, where we bring you insights and strategies to help grow your practice and amplify your impact. Welcome, everybody, to the Holistic Growth Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Tracey Stroup. I am the Chief Health and Growth Officer right here at Get Healthy Store, who is our sponsor and collaborator in this great podcast. Today, I have two very special guests, but from one company, one of our brands on our catalog, and an exceptional brand, an innovator in technology when it comes to nutraceuticals, Good Iodine. And with me today is Phil Coles. He is one of the founders of Good Iodine, but he's also the executive vice president. And then I have Sharon Cusack, who is an integrative health coach, an inflammation specialist, and so much more. Today, we're going to be talking about this incredible molecular technology, and we're going to explore why iodine may be one of the most overlooked nutrients in modern health. Its role in human development from conception through adulthood, but this is not your grandma's iodine, I have to tell you. So thank you so much for both of you being here today. It's super special. I have two guests today.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Phil, since you are one of the founders, I'm going to start with you. Can you give us a little background about yourself and how you got into this space?
Well, I've always been interested in natural health. And about 6 years ago, I was looking for something, having turned into my 50s, I was looking for something to boost my testosterone. And I tried a different number of different things, synthetic hormones, worked really well. But I knew that there was a natural way to boost my hormones in my body and found out about iodine. Met a gentleman who had developed a technology that I didn't know existed. And in fact, when I started to talk to the homeopathic people in my life that I had looked to help me with my health, they had never known of this product to be available as well, but they were very excited about it. And one in particular asked me how much could she get. So I was talking to Terry Mullins, the scientist, and we developed a product that she was using for all of her patients that were needing thyroid support.
Mm.
Um, Patients with diabetes, patients that had problems with fatigue, women that were trying to get pregnant, women that were developing children inside of them. The foundation of cellular health is the T3, T4 hormones that are created at the thyroid. And the only fuel that your thyroid needs to make a T3, T4 hormone is iodide. And normally in nature, we eat foods that are rich and high in iodide, and we convert those in our body to two forms of iodine. So as an iodine supplement, one of the first iodines that I knew about was Lugol's. And the an adult needs 150 micrograms of iodine per day. A woman who is creating a child inside of her, growing a fetus from one cell to 20 trillion cells, requires double the amount. So 150 micrograms for an adult, 290 micrograms for a pregnant woman or a lactating woman. The reason is that the T4 hormones that we create at our thyroids are crucial for, in a case of a woman, crucial for the development of the brain, the central nervous system, and the skeletal structure in the fetus. So the T4 hormone crosses the blood-brain barrier and does exactly in a child, in a fetus, in a growing infant, what it does for an adult or a human that's out in the world. The T4 hormone interacts with our metabolism, converting our food into energy. And when it expends that energy, the T4 hormone drops a molecule to become a T3 hormone. And that T3 hormone is required at the nucleus of every cell. We have 35 trillion cells in our body, and that T3 hormone is required at the nucleus of every cell to regulate the life and function of the cell. So when we talk about cellular health and this product and this product and this element is important for cellular health, the basis of it is iodine. And in fact, according to evolution, science. There was nothing on this planet for 2 billion years. And then iodide and fungus came together, and that is the origin of life, according to evolutionary science. When it comes to all life on Earth, we require iodide to consume it in any way we can to make these two forms of iodine in our body. And without a thyroid, you will die between 6 months to 2 years if you cannot get a synthetic drug, a levothyroxine. It's a synthetic T4 hormone drug, is essential for those people to be alive. But what's interesting is that what we're seeing in the studies is that only 10% of the people taking Synthroid or levothyroxine, the synthetic T4 hormone, require it. The other 90% just require their thyroid to be fueled with the only
Right.
element it needs to make those hormones.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. I want to come back on boosting hormones, testosterone in particular. I want to come back to that, but I want to take a minute to talk to Sharon, who is with us today, and to give her a little minute to introduce herself. And how did you get with Good Iodine?
Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was down in Mexico at a healing and training center as a practitioner and training and looking at all these different nutraceuticals that are available. And I was introduced to the Good Iodine and realized very quickly how powerful it was from the, initial stages because of the formula that has been created within this absolutely amazing product, how it can initially affect the kill factor, the fungus, the bacteria, viruses within the body, and how even for my own personal journey, how it was like, when I felt like something was, kind of coming in, that I could take it and bam, and then realize that now it, moves into iodide and goes in and is part of the cell regeneration and apoptosis of the cell itself, and then stimulates the production of the T3 and the T4 hormones. So as a practitioner, I started to integrate that within my practice, and then found out that people that had cancer, and especially being a woman, I was very exposed to women that were having, breast cancer issues and things, and started to elevate the levels that they were taking rather than the standard dosage of 5 sprays, that they could now start consuming it internally, like, 5, 6, 8, 9 teaspoons a day, and how effective it was on the cancer cells, and how effective it was on helping to support them on their healing journey. And and then with Terry Mullins, the founder, the scientist behind it, we had many conversations as I was working with different clients. I was very privileged to be able to speak to him on numerous occasions. And even with women with vaginal health, how they can actually put it, and use it to restore the vaginal canal, and how effective that was on, the tissues itself, and revitalizing the body. So I became very clear very quickly as to how powerful this was. And then even using it on my family, and using it on, if I had a wound, or, I could spray it on there, and then the wound would heal like instantly. So the cyclical element of the formula that it's within, it became it's part of my standard practice. I carry it all the time. I encourage all my clients to take it, and especially women that are, pregnant and lactating. That is, it's made such a difference in their lives, and such a difference in many of my clientele's lives.
Amazing. Yeah, I've had a little bit of experience from speaking with Phil a few years back. And just what he shared with me at the time, I was like, wow, there's so many applications to this. I just want to get clarity. I'm going to start back to you, Phil, and pose this question. What makes Good Iodine different? How can we get a comparison chart for practitioners to understand how incredible this really is?
It's a great question. Typically, iodine is known as a disinfectant, and povidone-iodine is a very, very popular product. It's in all the hospitals. We use it now in dental practice a lot. And it's a product that you should never ingest, because what povidone-iodine is. Betadine would be one of the most popular brand names of povidone-iodine. What that product is it's actually plastic particles that are impregnated with iodine. And when that product touches a surface, the iodine is released from the plastic. And it's very interesting, that technology. In hospitals, it was created to disinfect floors and surfaces, and it does it like no other product. It's better than chlorine, it's better than bromine, it's better than any product that would be considered a disinfectant. But the wonderful part is that we require it in our body as a pure form product. So unfortunately, povidone-iodine isn't a consumable. Tincture of iodine is what we all experienced as the older ones of us that experienced it as kids. When we got a cut, our mom would put iodine on it and it would sting. And it was the alcohol that would sting the worst. It wasn't the iodine. And I've used pure molecular iodine, which is what Good Iodine is. It's just water and iodine. There's nothing else in that bottle other than those two elements. And even as we are starting to produce our product in different labs, we have lab technicians coming to us saying it's impossible what we're making, and we laugh and we say, yes, we know. We know that the science books haven't caught up to us yet. Eventually, we may see that. Certainly with the education. But what I'm getting at is that with a product like Lugol's, which most practitioners know about Lugol's. The problem with Lugol's, first of all, is that one drop has 18.5 milligrams of a combined potassium iodide at 2/3 and 1/3 molecular iodine. So the 1/3 molecular iodine is great. And I don't have the problem with people taking 6.5 milligrams of iodine per day. If you had Hashimoto's, or if you had Graves' disease, or certain issues that you're already having problems with an irregularity in production of T4 hormones, I would say no, don't take that product because it's too high in dosage. The FDA and universally we're saying that the RDA is 150 micrograms for an adult. A pregnant woman 290, lactating women 290. A newborn to 1 year, 110 micrograms, not much less than an adult. For some reason in the RDA, as soon as a child turns 1 until they're 14, they only need 90 micrograms. And when we look at RDA, we also have to understand that might not be completely accurate. You want to self-regulate your consumption. It's like with vitamin C. We've got 500 milligrams is what everybody says is the standard, but most people are taking 2,000 or more because they know that we require more vitamin C and we eat it in our food. But getting back to the product differences, so Lugol's has potassium iodide in it. And what that is a solvent that was used by Lugol, Dr. Lugol, 200 years ago to dissolve iodine in water. And this is why the lab technicians are saying that what we're making is impossible, because you can't make a pure molecular iodine without using a solvent or a surfactant to dissolve iodine. In our technology, we've been able to figure out how to do that. We can produce 150 ppm iodine, which means 150 parts iodine to 1,000,000 parts water. So it's very diluted. We've had this product be repurposed by many doctors. Some of the founders of the FLCCC used our product. That's the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. These are the doctors that were treating patients with COVID and were in some cases losing their licenses, losing their hospital privileges because they were treating patients with known therapeutics that were helping to reduce the illness. So they used Good Iodine and they had great results with it. 1 to 3 days, patients were symptom-free of COVID, influenza, strep throat, which is a bacterial infection, which you need antibiotics for, otherwise it can just keep in your body and get worse. So as a disinfectant, iodine is a known disinfectant. We don't sell our product as a disinfectant. We sell our product as thyroid and immune system support. And we can say those with uh, uh, with the confidence that the FDA will approve us as a product that we're saying that. In Europe, we can say cognitive function, we can say early childhood development, because remember, brain, central nervous system, and skeletal structure. Those are things that are developing until we're 20 years old. So we still need this element, this crucial element for our brain development. Um,
Oh, yeah.
they're just was it metabolism is the other thing that we get to say in Europe. We have 5 claims we can make in Europe with our simple micronutrient.
That's awesome. So, Sharon, I mean, you're a practitioner and you have embraced this product in your practice. Give us some insight of how you're using it. I know we're not making claims, but what are you seeing with this, with support on different clinical cases that you've seen?
Well, I've been working with women, of course, a lot actually, since I am a woman, and the fungated tumors, as far as breast tumors, I've seen absolutely wonderful results with using compresses of the molecular iodine, of the good iodine, where they actually take, and it's got to be 100% cotton, and they soak the cotton pad with the iodine, with the good iodine, and then they actually tape it to their breast. And I've seen clinically the reduction of that actual fungated tumor on their breast, where it's actually noticeably been reduced. It's like as soon as it starts, it's magic. And as far as the disinfectant, and as far as actually, being responsible for restoring those tissues, it is reducing the inflammation, reducing the actual tumor itself, and really giving them that relief. And when I'm working with individuals and they're seeing these types of things that are happening with their bodies from a psychological standpoint, it's really tough. And when they can actually, see it reducing in size, it makes a huge amount of difference. And then from my own personal journey, as far as within my family, my grandson, one day he had really bad diaper rash, and I was like, okay, I out I went, grabbed my bottle. Within seconds, it went from this inflamed area to it was pretty much done. And he was like not crying anymore. And he was a really happy young fellow. And then from the standpoint of them taking it internally, higher dosages on an empty stomach, and really helping with the support and seeing that they're, as far as these women goes, with their cancers, seeing their markers coming down substantially as they're going through their journey.
Mhm.
And then also from people that are actually having troubles with their thyroid function, hypothyroidism, and actually getting them off of medications, so they're actually moving themselves in a direction, and that's totally up to them. And so they've actually been taking the good iodine and realizing that they're not needing to take as much of their pharmaceutical substances that they're taking, and then they're actually weaning themselves off and feeling so much better within their lives because of that thyroid support. It's been
Wow.
really found.
If
Yeah,
I
that is,
could just say,
yeah.
sorry, if
No,
I could just say one thing, we are just about to launch what we're calling the Synthroid Review in America, and what we're asking patients that are taking levothyroxine, Synthroid, these synthetic T4 hormone drugs, we're asking them to try taking 5 sprays a day of good iodine for 90 days. We're asking them to fill out a questionnaire with their weight, a number of different conditions of their body, get blood work done to see, hopefully at the end, what we're looking to see if they can produce natural T4 hormones with the introduction of this element back to their body. And we're not looking to get rid of Synthroid. We're just looking to see if they can do this to start to reduce their prescription, so that they're taking less of that. And hopefully, if their thyroids can produce enough T4 hormones with the introduction of this element back into their body, that they will be able to, as Sharon said, produce these hormones more naturally, and that they will not need the synthetic hormones as much, or at all if it's possible.
I'll say it for you, Phil. Every practitioner is trying to get rid of synthroid. I mean, clinically, most people are misdiagnosed that have thyroid issues. They're put on, synthroid or levothyroxine way too early without looking at lifestyle and, the nutritional deficiencies that are associated, even the conversion issues that occur. So in the integrative, functional, and natural space, we know the real problem. With the medical allopathic, they know diagnostic codes and prescriptions. So that's where they are. This is where we are. So everybody has a choice, but I think it should be informed choice. It should be an informed consent when, a practitioner says, hey, you have thyroid dysfunction. What does that really mean? And more than TSH and T4. Can we just draw more numbers? Thank you. So that's what I'll say. I'll say that on my behalf of my own opinion, because that's a really frustrating thing for people to come to me as a practitioner. And I have my own practice, I have my own clinic, same as you, Sharon. And they say, well, my doctor said I'll never be able to get off of this. And I was like, well, that's because your doctor doesn't know how to help you get off of it. So that's him saying, I don't know how to help you. So therefore, I'm going to say this. So I'll say that part.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
2 years ago, I think when we talked, Phil, you were telling me that most of the supplements, and maybe I'm misspeaking completely, so correct me if I'm wrong, that they are a potassium iodide and that they're not molecular iodine. Can you just cover that a little bit? Is that a correct statement to say? And
Yeah,
why does that matter?
well, potassium iodide has a very strong covalent bond. And it is as I said, it was a solvent used to dissolve molecular iodine from the iodine crystals in a solution. And so, as far as what a supplement has that just has potassium iodide, what your body's required to do is it's required to separate the potassium from the iodide so that your body can use the iodide to make the two forms of iodine. Atomic iodine, or sorry, I2 molecular iodine is formed in the belly, and that's an interesting subject on its own. And atomic iodine, so single positively charged iodine molecules are produced at the thyroid. A T3 hormone has three single positively charged iodine molecules attached to it. A T4 hormone has four. And so this is how you can understand. And I mean, when you think about energy, that's motion. And the fastest moving molecule on the periodic table that we require in our body is iodine. There's only two faster ones on the periodic table, helium and one other halogen, and we don't need those in our body. But we
Right.
do need iodine. And so it makes sense that that's our energy level. And that's why the levothyroxine synthroid gets prescribed, is because generally people are tired. They're weak. Typically women are diagnosed with hypothyroidism when they're pregnant, and they're not consuming enough iodide. So here's nature for you, ladies, and this is the thing that I've been saying in my lectures, is that if a T4 hormone is crucial for the development of your child's brain, central nervous system, and skeletal structure, it has to have it. And what woman wouldn't give everything she has to the development of that child? So, as nature would have it, it's the woman that suffers if she's
Mhm.
not making enough T4 hormones. And typically that's what happens. I mean, of course, your body is completely distorted by this other human growing inside of you. That's something that is incredible on its own. But for you to not have the energy for yourself to keep going and functioning while you're growing that child inside of you for 9 months, and especially that last trimester, when
Right.
the child is needing more, and this is where I say, self-regulation is important. With good iodine, you're giving yourself 30 micrograms every day.
Wow.
So you can take more. 10 sprays would be typically for a pregnant woman, but you could take 15 or 20. And
Yeah.
I think that the study of this is crucial for us to do. The AI search I did recently, I was looking for a study Doctors in Canada did in the 80s on women with fibroids and fibroid cysts. It's called the Ghent Eskin study, and it's on my website in its entirety. So
Mhm.
it's been homogenized on the National Library of Medicine, and it's missing a lot of information, one of which was potassium iodide didn't work.
Right.
So
So I was going to go into that because I'm going to tell you in the natural health world, we are taught not to give pregnant women iodine. Like, oh, no, no, you can't do that. You can't. I mean, and I think it's because most of it was potassium iodine. It doesn't work. It probably drives a different inflammation marker or system because of the potassium. I would imagine that it would jack your potassium up too much if you didn't need it. So, yeah, so continue. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to say
no,
that
no,
because
it's great. It's
welling
great
in
that
my
you said.
brain, you know?
No, it's great that you said that because in the Ghent Eskin study that's in its entirety on my website, you can read the study as it was written. When they said potassium iodide didn't work to remove fibroids and fibroid cysts in women's breasts, but pure molecular iodine, after 5 months of drinking 6 milligrams per day, 93% had a significant reduction in fibroids and fibroid cysts in the breast and 72% were gone.
That's amazing.
So, women that have hard lumps, that get concerned about them, this product can help you with
Yeah.
that. We can't make those claims. We'd have to do the work, we'd have to do the studies, but the science is already there. These doctors did it. And when I had a link to the study and it went missing for a year. And I talked to people that worked at the National Library of Medicine. One of the people that ran it for 20 years was working with us in Good Iodine for a period of time, and he couldn't find it. I did this AI search for it and I found the study that I had lost. And I printed it. I did all kinds of things to make sure I never lost it again. I put it on my website again as its entirety. So it's not a link. It's not
So
something that we
is
lose.
this the Good Iodine website you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to make sure that we get, and there is a science section on there. It's loaded with information. So it's very
Well,
interesting
and
because,
also, I was just going to interject here is that, I mean, studies are showing that there in fibroid cysts that there are high levels of potassium, up to
okay, so-
55%
wow,
already within those cysts. And so then if you're taking something that is a potassium iodide product, well, then you're
hmm.
just elevating that potassium even higher.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That is such a great point to bring up. Thank you. I want to come back to you, Sharon, and talk to you about because you're the practitioner. You use this all the time. You told us a few ways that you're using it, like compress. You sprayed it on areas, but what are all the applications, like oral, nasal, inhalation? Like, give me some clinical application. How do I use this in my practice? What do I do?
Well, you can use it by the sprays, and you can certainly use it by vaping it, by actually like in doing the
Nebulizer? Hmm.
yeah, a nebulizer, which is really, really powerful for the lungs, really powerful for getting it in to the body in such a instant way. And I've done it myself as far as nebulizing goes, and very, very powerful for sinuses. So many people have sinus issues, and nebulizing it, and then with the compresses and with the high dosages, where you take it on an empty stomach with distilled water, because iodine doesn't like playing with other minerals, so it doesn't play well. So it's got to be water that is distilled with no minerals, demineralized water, and you would take it on an empty stomach so it can go right in to the system itself and then be distributed from that perspective. And then of course from compresses and then the sprays. And then I have my family on it, my grandchildren on it, I have my daughter on it. And another thing to note is that many of these other products that are out there, they actually bypass the thyroid, and then the thyroid goes to sleep, whereas this is actually stimulating the production of the T3 and the T4 hormones. So it's actually encouraging the thyroid to do its job. And the other thing is that I find that many people have thyroid issues that are highly stressed. That they're, it's like their thyroid starts to really be affected by their stress levels because they're contracting in so many areas. Because I
Yeah.
also people as far as opening up the body and getting rid of the blockages in the body. And so then as far as applying it, and I get numerous people saying that their energy levels have increased, they feel like a new person. It's like the missing link. And as Phil had mentioned, it's one of the most important things. And people say, well, I'll just eat a bunch of seaweed. Well, I mean, an interesting note is that to get the amount of iodide in the body, you'd have to consume like 15 pounds of cod or haddock a month. And and then
Besides the metals, you'll feel great. You're gonna feel great.
yeah, that's right,
A lot of
exactly.
fish.
And another thing that people don't really realize is that iodide is stored in the ocean. And so when you go swimming, that's why we feel so good when we get into ocean water. But the other factor is that, we can actually stand by the ocean because the lightning strikes the ocean surface like 5,000 times per day, 500,000 times per day. And
Yeah.
what you can actually do is you can actually stand at the ocean's edge and you can breathe in molecular iodine.
Yeah,
That's why
that's why we
I'm
sent
at the
people to the
beach.
sea to
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, we sent people to the sea to convalesce because they were breathing iodide. And when this lightning storms would happen, they would wheel out as many people as they could outside to breathe the molecular iodine that would be in the ozone when the storms would come by. So yeah, crazy.
The
Wow.
good
That's
iodine is also known as, I like this phrase, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
I guess it's true. I mean, besides, probably thinking, my gosh, am I going to get struck by lightning? At least I'll have optimal levels of iodine when I go. Like, it's going to be great. So, no, just kidding. But it's why
Wonderful.
people feel so good at the beach, besides the sunshine and increasing vitamin D. It's like, the natural medicine that's out there that's already in our atmosphere. We try so hard to come inside, sit in our box, sit in our little screens, and figure out health rather than going outside and embracing what's already in nature, which you guys have found a way to do that without binding it to potassium, which now is going to work across the board for everybody. So I think that's fabulous. Um, so let's talk a little bit about, you had started out with testosterone and you came to iodine. Like, how tell me, how does molecular iodine increase testosterone?
Well,
Is
those
that
T3,
what you
T4
have?
hormones
Mhm.
have an effect on all the hormones in the body. And the word is indirectly,
Right.
according to science, that the levels of estrogen and testosterone are affected by the T3, T4 hormones. And of course, when we say that the T3 hormone is required at the nucleus of every cell in your body to regulate the life and function of that cell, then it starts to make sense. The most important gland in your body is your thyroid,
Yeah.
and there's other things that interact with it, but that's where you're not going to live without it. And so I guess the truth is that I was saying to a client this morning that I've been injuring myself a lot in the last 3 months. Like I had a sprain in my front of my leg because I've been walking 10 kilometers a day and I started running again. I haven't been running for a long time. And then I would get on my bike and just really enjoying being outside. The weather's beautiful. And as I would injure myself, I'd be, taking a drink of iodine in the morning, just as I normally do. And the injuries clearing up pretty fast. I got a really bad cut on my finger, a very deep cut. And within 2 days, it had completely closed. I sprayed some iodine on it and I put a Band-Aid on it for the first day. But after that, I took the Band-Aid off and I expected to lose a bunch of skin because it was a deep gash and it was on an angle. But it everything repaired very quickly. And I thought, well, isn't that great? I just realized that, it almost feels like, my body's healing better now than it ever has. So I don't know, that I can always attribute everything to iodine, but for sure, going into the gym now, it's been 6 years since I was taking some synthetic testosterone. And
Mhm.
I was fascinated with how strong I was and how much I could build muscle. And I had so much energy. I was building a house and a deck at the age of 54. And I thought, I'm doing pretty good. But now at 61, I really have a drive to, keep my belly fat off and keep in shape. And, I really enjoy being at the gym because I'm inspired by seeing other people working out. It makes me work harder. But I feel like I'm still pretty youthful, and so I attribute that mostly to iodine, really.
I know in my practice, Sharon, I don't know how you feel with men when they come in, usually correlating blood work for me that I see is really high RT3, reverse T3, usually 17 or higher in conjunction, which creates that low testosterone. And either one of you can answer this. How would this product, Good Iodine, come in and help with getting the iodine to go down this correct pathway rather than the RT3 pathway where we're getting like a reverse transcriptase happening?
Well, really, from the standpoint of iodine, I mean, it moves freely within our cells in this formula. And its first, order of business, because it's a cyclical element, is to kill any invaders. Then it breaks apart, and then now it allows the cells to go through the cycle of apoptosis, and then moves into like Phil was saying, it moves into the T3 and it starts producing the T3 and the T4 hormones, which are really responsible for the
Yeah.
cellular health, really responsible for how the DNA functions. And when the DNA isn't functioning properly, when we're lacking this wonderful iodide, then now how is the body going to start regenerating itself? How is it going to be signaling properly? And
Mm.
that's what I really love about it, the fact that how it's responsible for cell apoptosis as the molecular iodine, and then it moves itself into, it starts breaking apart those molecules and then moves itself into iodide. So I feel that and like Phil was mentioning, within his world as far as low testosterone levels. And I found it to be really, really beneficial for my clients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Energy levels is a huge part of it, and I guess testosterone is a big part of energy as well. I really have to study it more. One of the things that Sharon was talking about that really I want to make sure people understand it. I know that your practitioners know what apoptosis is.
Yes.
There's 200 different types of cells in our body. Brain cells, 200 years. Brain cells live for. Heart muscle cells, 15 years. Skin cells, 4 to 5 weeks. We had people taking good iodine in 2020 and 2021, and we had reports coming back from people that their fatty livers were starting to work again. And what
Wow.
one person said to me, I had to eat some junk food because I was rushed and I knew I was going to pay the price because they would always get sick when they ate pizza or something that they would really love to eat and they were pressed for time, so they justified it. And they ate it and they didn't get sick. And they went to the doctor and the doctor did the testings and said, your liver's working again. This person was on a donor list to have a liver replacement. He was obese and he's losing weight and he's having all these great things happen. And he had been taking good iodine for 18 months religiously to not get sick from COVID was his reason for taking it. He didn't realize what else it would do in his body. So liver cells replenish every 16 to 18 months. And so the T3 hormones required to the nucleus to regulate the life and the function of the cell. Molecular iodine, if you picture the cell as a swimming pool and the nucleus is a ping pong ball in the center, molecular iodine, I2, moves around freely inside of the cell and it will kill invaders. It will kill bacteria, kill bad things that are coming into the cell. And when that happens, I2 breaks apart naturally into two I minus molecules. That's iodide. And iodide provides for reproduction and the general health of the cell. So those are the key points. You got to have, but the other huge function of molecular iodine in the cell is apoptosis. That's what has a cell be taken out of the body when its time is up, when its expiration is up. It's molecular iodine that does that. So you've got the iodide in the cell providing for reproduction, a new cell, and the general health of the cell while it's alive. And of course, for a brain cell that lives for 200 years, I don't know how to fathom that,
Right.
but I think, okay, well, somebody knows that to be true, or some scientist has said this is what so. But one thing I wanted to make sure that I spoke about, because we were talking about different types of iodine, and I really want to say this, is that there is a product on the market that's been heavily marketed known as nascent
Yeah.
iodine.
Hmm.
And this product was developed in the 1930s, and then in the 1940s, it was put on the shelf because they couldn't find any use for it. And the reason is that when you hit molecular iodine, I2, when you hit that with a high electrical charge, this unnatural process of breaking apart this covalent bond of I2 breaks apart into two I positive molecules, not I minus, which is what naturally happens in the body. So you're breaking apart this I2 into two I plus, and the makers of this product, we've challenged them to prove to us scientifically that their product will support the thyroid. Because for us, we know that the only fuel your thyroid uses to make atomic iodine, which is the sole function of the thyroid, is I minus. I minus gets converted by the thyroid into I plus. This is what happens in nature. This is how God designed us. And so when we do this unnatural process and we break it apart into I plus, we can only bypass the thyroid with that product. And we also question, what energy does that new molecule that's been created, this I plus molecule, carry with it, because it's been hit with this high electrical charge to break the covalent bond of the molecular iodine. When you spray good iodine in your mouth and the back of your throat, and it interacts with bacteria and deactivates viruses like nothing else on the planet. Um, the natural process has it convert to I minus. We swallow that, it goes down into our belly, and our belly will turn a certain amount of the iodide into I2 in the belly. And what happens then is that iodide, I minus and I2, enter the bloodstream and go past your thyroid every 16 to 18 minutes. And the sole job of the thyroid is to pull out the I minus, the iodide, and convert it into I plus, and then that gets stored in the thyroid and then attached to the T3, T4 hormones as single molecules. But what happens with this I plus product? We don't know, and we've been challenging the makers that say that it's the most bioavailable product and it's great for this and that. We've challenged them to show us the science, and the truth is that there is none that's ever been done. And one of the companies that we've worked with to develop the product for them, our pure molecular iodine, her father had a low thyroid, and he didn't like going to doctors. He was about 80 years old, and he started to buy nascent iodine and use nascent iodine. And she said that he died, and he died of a low thyroid. So, having heard that story, I keep wondering how this nascent iodine is going to work inside of people's bodies, just like Lugol's. Lugol's wasn't designed as a supplement.
Hmm.
Lugol's was designed to treat tuberculosis, and it worked very well. Dr. Lugol had a great product. It's a product that you go in and you just you're gonna hopefully get rid of bad cells, get rid of bad invaders in your body, but it's not a product that was ever meant to take daily. At
Yeah.
18.5 milligrams is such a high dosage. So, and as Sharon said, there's a high amount of potassium found in a fibroid cyst in women's breasts.
Right.
And we eat bananas and we know they're high in potassium, but it's like saying calcium. You know, Practitioners, we all know that a lot of the calcium pills out there are not good for people. They're not at all bioavailable because they're ground up oyster shells. I mean, when you Google calcium, that's one of the first things you start to see is ground up oyster shells. And most practitioners, natural health people understand our bodies can't use that form of calcium. It's not meant to be consumed. Humans were never meant to consume oyster shells. Otherwise, our teeth and our bodies would be completely,
Different. Yeah,
we'd be Terminators, maybe. So,
right.
yeah.
Well,
Well, and it's all about the absorbability. It's that the body has to recognize it in order to be able to assimilate it. And when you're doing calcium as oyster shells, it's like, what the heck? And so then you just create more bloodborne calcium and then it finds a place to park. And that creates a problem within itself.
Yeah.
And when we talk about toxins and poisons and bad cells in our system itself, I mean, that's what the cyclical elemental portion of it, because apoptosis is the expiry date of the cell. And when we don't have the ability to eliminate those bad and expired cells from our system itself, then now we can end up producing tumors and then
right.
areas of the body that have, toxins and poisons and the bad cells. So how do we repair a body when we can't get rid of the garbage? And that's what's really wonderful. And one of the main part of my practices is to start detoxifying the system. And that's what I really love about the good iodine, because that's part of the cyclical elemental force of it, is to then get rid of those expired cells, help to repair damaged cells, and actually move forward from the standpoint of having that, molecular element to stimulating the thyroid and that base structure, which is absolutely imperative.
It's amazing. Well, this has been extremely enlightening and powerful. Do you have more education available for practitioners on your website, or if they establish a wholesale account with you, do you provide an education for them, protocols? What all is possible with a wholesale account with you?
Well, there's a lot of science on our website, and we will continue to add to that. And I know it can be a bit daunting reading some of these studies. So I'm more than happy to speak to practitioners about the studies to kind of let them know. With the Ghent-Esken study, one of the fascinations we had was that there was over 4,000 women
Yeah.
participating in a blind placebo study, a true blind placebo study. So 2,000 of the women in this study were drinking a chlorine product, that simulated the flavor of iodine. Because when you first spray good iodine in your mouth, you'll think, oh, this tastes like a pool water, you know.
Mm.
It's a halogen. It has that quality to it. But unlike chlorine, it's not poison in our bodies. We need it. And, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the tropics and I've met people that drink a mouthful of seawater every day and they swear by it, that that's a part of their healthy regime. And I'm sure I wish I lived on the ocean and had that opportunity to be in the ocean every day. And every time I'm at the ocean, I'm in it. I just spend all my time there.
Absolutely.
But I love to as I've talked with Sharon and learned so much from Sharon and so many of the practitioners that I work with, I'm more than happy to share the stories that other practitioners have shared with me. One of the most well-known homeopathic and integrated medicine doctors in the Toronto area was one of our very first customers. And
Okay.
we developed a product for her that was a pure iodide. So we converted molecular iodine into a pure iodide, which is just I minus, and it's a great product. We don't make it right now, but we will again, and you can add it to any drink, any product, and it would just be doing the exact same thing as our good iodine, except it wouldn't kill anything. It would just feed the body the fuel it needs to make the two things that would do, those two forms of iodine. But more than happy to talk to people if they ask me questions over the website or my phone number is on there. I'll answer questions. In my life, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. And I generally will always answer the phone, and if I can't answer it, I'll get back to you. So, don't be shy. If you've got a question about something that you can't have answered from the science that we have on our page, I'm more than willing to look at it with you and, just kind of discover the obvious. The one thing that Terry Mullins told me years while I was learning from him about iodine is it is the most studied element in the last 200 years. And it really is. There's a paper written by a Dr. Derry, the title of the paper is The Forgotten Weapon in a Pandemic, and it's iodine. And when we were first encountering COVID, I knew that this product would be the perfect product for every senior, every person that was overweight, all of those vulnerable population to have this product just as a daily micronutrient to help them with their thyroid and immune support. But you know, we don't make any claims of this, but we know what iodine does. And I will say this, and I've given a lot of lectures over my time. You know, when Donald Trump said maybe we could inject a disinfectant into our body, and the media said bleach,
Right.
I challenge everyone to prove to me that he ever said bleach.
Right.
And everybody's done the work, and they've always come back to me and said, no, you're right. And this is just an example. The most powerful disinfectant on the planet is iodine. And we've known that for centuries now. And yet in some ways it's been kept from us. And with good iodine, it's back, and everybody can take the product. Newborns need 110 micrograms of iodine. Now, if a woman is taking enough, she's going to feed that to her child through her breast milk. But if children can't be breastfed, take a look at their formulas that you're giving them and make sure that there's at least potassium iodide in there. There will not be a pure iodide, but you can get that product with our product. It will make it just like it does in an adult. And when my granddaughter was 1.5 years old, she had tear ducts that wouldn't open under one of her eyes. And the doctor said he was going to put her to sleep with anesthetic and put a pin-shaped tool to open her tear ducts with. And when I heard that, I said to my daughter-in-law, I said, "You're not going to let them do that to Marigold, are you?" And she said, "Oh, no, I would never allow that." And so I said, "Is it okay if we spray her with iodine?" Because I've used it many times in my eyes for styes. And what I found was that I would spray the stye and then it wouldn't form. It would just disappear.
Mhm.
My grandson had pink eye. I sprayed him once with good iodine. He was about 7. In 5 minutes after I sprayed him, he came back. His eye was white, and that was the end of it. So Marigold had a tear ducts that wouldn't open. We sprayed her eye a bunch of times with good iodine. I played a game with her that day. I sprayed myself many times and her, and we were laughing and having fun. And I was wiping away all of this yellow discharge that was coming down her face from the corner of her eye, and I could see
Wow.
beads coming out at her tear ducts. So I'm looking at this with my daughter-in-law saying, "Can you believe this? Like it's just coming out of the body." And so 10 days later, I asked how Marigold's eye was doing because I hadn't seen her, and she had been taken to the naturopathic doctor, and the naturopath said, because we killed the infection, the tear ducts were able to open naturally. And she was also taking tissue salts to assist in this. I think that there was a combination of things, and warm compresses on the eye to pull the infection out. But the iodine occurrence was a phenomenon. It was really incredible. And she's never needed any surgery. She's never needed ever again to have her eye sprayed with iodine. So,
Amazing.
that she's now 4.5 years old.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been, I don't know, Sharon, if you have anything you want to finish with as well, these amazing stories.
Well, the thing is that when we recognize, I'd just like to list off some of the things so that people can really recognize what the application is. I mean, hormone production and balancing, and it's safe for all ages. And it's the nature's like finest antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. It can help with the body weight management as far as the metabolism. the reduction of fibroids and fibroid cysts in the breasts. It can increase your energy, brain function, clearer thinking from the T4 hormones, because T4 hormones are required for clearer thinking, helping with the blood sugar levels. And then, just cellular regeneration, where we can get to the cells and really start nourishing the cells so that then they can operate properly. Well, that is the basis of all health. And the good iodine, I mean, I cannot say enough about it. My children, my grandchildren take it. I have many of my clients on it, and they've had such fabulous results from all of those types of issues that they're dealing with.
Sounds like
Yeah.
everybody should be on a little good iodine every day, huh?
Yep. Good iodine every day.
Yep, it does the body good.
Yeah.
So we'll replace milk. We don't need them. So, well, I appreciate you both being here and sharing all of this incredible insights on, molecular iodine, cellular health, human development, detoxification, everything that iodine tends to touch, but more specifically, your good iodine and the way that it works, and really getting rid of some myths and misinformation that's out there that can really be dangerous. Because supplements aren't regulated, we need to be better at understanding the biochemistry of how things work. And I know practitioners, that's where education and opportunities like this to share this information are so important. So I appreciate you both for being here. And I want to remind everybody listening that Good Iodine is available on the Get Healthy catalog. So if you have the Get Healthy store, you can add this product to your store and start selling it within minutes and telling everybody what incredible magic this is. And it's not magic, it's science, straight up. So, Phil, Sharon, thank you again for being here. I so appreciate you sharing everything and for continuing on the work of Mullen and everything that he's contributed scientifically to our industry and our world to help more people. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. If this was helpful to you, make sure you pass it to someone else because I assure you it'll be helpful to them. Don't forget to get a wholesale account with Good Iodine and add it to your Get Healthy store. And we will be back next time with more great information. Thanks for tuning in to the Holistic Growth Podcast.
Thank you so much, Tracey.